Hey there, Ruthhaven Grounds family. Let me tell you about the moment I realized I'd been doing raised bed gardening the expensive way. So, picture this. Me at the garden center, staring at my cart loaded with 20 bags of compost, mentally calculating whether I needed to take out a small loan just to fill my new raised beds. Sound familiar? If you've ever felt that sinking feeling in your stomach when the cashier rings up your soil order, you're going to want to hear about the fall shortcut that's completely transformed how I approach filling raised beds. Here's the thing that nobody talks about enough. Filling raised beds with pure compost or purchased garden soil is not only unnecessarily expensive, it's actually not ideal for your plants in the long run. I'm going to share a method that uses fall's natural abundance to create rich living soil that costs you next to nothing and actually outperforms those expensive bagged products. This isn't about cutting corners, it's about working smarter with nature's rhythms. Before we dive into the solution, let's talk about why filling your raised beds with straight compost creates problems. I learned this the hard way during my second season of gardening, when my tomato plants looked absolutely stunning, but produced disappointingly few fruits. The issue? Pure compost is too rich, too loose, and lacks the structural diversity that plants actually need. Compost alone compacts significantly as it continues to break down, which means you'll watch your beautifully filled bed shrink by several inches over just one growing season. You'll also deal with drainage issues because compost, especially when it's the only component, can become hydrophobic when it dries out completely, then turn into a soggy mess when it finally does absorb water. Your plants need a more complex soil ecosystem with varying particle sizes, minerals from different sources, and organic matter in various stages of decomposition. Now here's where it gets exciting. Every fall, we're surrounded by free, incredible soil-building materials that most people bag up and send to the landfill. I'm talking about leaves, grass clippings, garden debris, and even cardboard. This method, which I've been refining over the past 5 years at Ruthhaven Grounds, uses these materials in layers to create what essentially becomes a composting raised bed that feeds itself. The genius of this approach is that you're building soil right where you need it. And by spring, you'll have a rich, balanced growing medium that didn't cost you more than a few bags of actual compost to jumpstart the process. I've used this method to fill beds ranging from small 4x4 plots to massive 8x4 beds that would have cost me hundreds of dollars to fill conventionally. Start with the bottom layer, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but I want you to put down larger, slower decomposing materials first. I'm talking about small branches, woody prunings, even pine cones if you have them. This layer should be about 4 to 6 inches deep. What you're creating here is a drainage layer that also provides air pockets and will slowly release nutrients as it breaks down over the years. I've pulled apart 3-year-old beds and found these bottom materials still intact, but soft and providing incredible structure. On top of that foundational layer, add a thick blanket of fall leaves. Don't shred them if you don't have to. Whole leaves work just fine and will break down over winter. Aim for 6 to 8 inches of leaves. If you don't have enough leaves from your own yard, drive around your neighborhood on leaf collection day. I've filled entire beds with bags of leaves that neighbors left curbside, and they're always happy to have someone take them away. Here's where a lot of folks make a critical mistake. They get impatient and want to fill the bed all the way to the top. But resist that urge. After your leaf layer, add a 2 to 3 inch layer of nitrogen-rich materials. This could be grass clippings saved from your final fall mows, kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, or even a few bags of cheap composted manure from the garden center. This nitrogen layer is what really activates the decomposition of all those carbon-rich leaves below it. Now we're getting to my favorite part of this method. Take plain cardboard, shipping boxes are just perfect, and make sure to remove any tape or plastic labels. Wet the cardboard thoroughly until it's completely saturated, then layer it right over your nitrogen materials. This cardboard layer, honestly, does something magical. It acts as a weed barrier while also providing additional carbon for decomposition, and as it breaks down, it creates pathways that earthworms absolutely love. On top of the cardboard, add whatever finished compost you have on hand. This could be homemade compost, a few bags of purchased compost, or even just quality topsoil mixed with compost. You really only need about 4 to 6 inches of this finished material. This is your planting layer for spring, and since everything below it is composting in place, this top layer is going to be fed from underneath all through the growing season. Finally, top everything off with a thick mulch layer of more leaves or straw. This protects your bed over winter, keeps the decomposition process going even in cold weather, and helps prevent erosion if you get heavy winter rains. Come spring, you can just pull back this mulch layer and plant directly into the finished compost layer while everything below continues to break down and feed your plants. Here's what's going to happen over the winter that makes this whole method so brilliant. All those layers will compress and decompose, usually settling down to about half their original height by spring. The microbial activity actually generates heat even in cold weather, which speeds up the decomposition. By the time you're ready to plant, you'll have a bed that's alive with beneficial microorganisms. Earthworms will have moved in and created natural channels for air and water, and your plants will have access to nutrients that release slowly throughout the growing season. The first spring after building these fall beds, I was genuinely shocked at the difference in plant performance. My tomatoes produced earlier and more abundantly, my root vegetables grew larger and more flavorful, and I barely needed to fertilize because the soil was continually feeding itself from within. The plants just looked different, deep green, robust, resilient. Not everyone has access to unlimited fall leaves, and that's okay. The principle here is layering carbon-rich and nitrogen-rich materials in a way that creates a composting environment right in your bed. If you don't have leaves, you can use straw, shredded paper, or even bulk wood chips on the bottom layers. If you're in an urban environment, reach out to local coffee shops for grounds, contact tree service companies for wood chips, or check with municipalities that often give away leaf mulch collected from public spaces. For those of you filling brand new, very deep beds, this method is even more valuable. I recently built beds that were 18 inches deep, and filling them entirely with purchased soil would have been prohibitively expensive. Using this layering method, I spent less than $50 per bed and created soil that's actually superior to anything I could have purchased. The beauty of this system extends beyond just the first season. Each fall, you can top up your beds with another layer of leaves and compost, essentially refreshing the soil without completely replacing it. The decomposition happening in the lower layers continues to feed upward, meaning your soil actually improves year after year rather than becoming depleted. I've got beds that I filled using this method 5 years ago, and they're producing better now than they did in year 1. The soil structure has become incredible, loose enough for easy root penetration, but with enough substance to hold moisture and nutrients. When I dig into these beds, they're teeming with life in a way that beds filled with purchased soil simply never achieve in their first few seasons. This approach also makes you a better observer of your garden ecosystem. You'll start noticing what materials break down quickly in your climate, which combinations create the best results, and how different plants respond to this living soil system. It's turned me from someone who just follows instructions into someone who truly understands soil building. Ready to try this fall shortcut for yourself? Start gathering those leaves now while they're everywhere, save your cardboard boxes, and give this method a try. I promise you'll be amazed at what you can create with materials most people consider waste. If you found this helpful, subscribe to Ruth Haven Grounds for more practical gardening wisdom, and share this with fellow gardeners who are tired of breaking the bank on bagged soil. Let's build better gardens together, one fall leaf at a time.